My name is Dale Titus, and I'd like to welcome you to the Ultimate Beginner Series for Bass, Step 2. In Step 1, I covered a lot of the fundamental skills that would get your hands ready for playing. In this tape, we will focus more on the playing itself. After all, that's why you picked up the bass in the first place, isn't it? We will start by concentrating on how to lock in with the drummer in various styles, and then we'll play some blues bass lines. Finally, we'll cover the very popular slap and pop technique. Before we get started, however, let's tune up. First, you'll be tuning to me. Here's an E string, now my A, here's the D, and lastly the G. In the previous video, I showed you how to tune up using a 5th fret method. There's another method to use which is a little more accurate and easier to hear, and it's called the harmonic method. To play a harmonic on your bass, you need to lightly press down over a fret and pluck pretty hard with your picking hand. This is a E string 5th fret harmonic. It's a very pure tone and it's higher in pitch, so it's easier to hear. Now if we're going to use harmonics to tune the bass, we would use a 5th fret E harmonic and match that with the A string playing on the 7th fret. Now those notes are real pure, and so it's easy to hear that they're together. Once those are in tune, we can play 5th fret A string and 7th fret D string. Once again, real pure, real easy to hear. Now we can play on the D string, 5th fret. We can play the G string, 7th fret. Now why don't I take a string out of tune so you'll hear what it sounds like out of tune. So again, D string, G string, listen. You're listening for the waves to actually slow down. This is a really good way to tune up, and it can also help with your electronic tuners. If your tuner isn't reading the note real accurately, you can try a different technique. Let's say you were trying to tune your G string and it wasn't working well with the open G note. Try playing on the G string 12th fret harmonic. That's a higher pitch and a purer tone, and sometimes the tuner will really lock onto it. So try that with your tuner if you're having troubles. Now that we're tuned up, let's go play. As a member of a band, you and the drummer need to be a tight and indivisible team. As a bass player, you need to always make sure that what you play is locked in with what the drummer is playing. It's vital. So let's take some time to learn how to play with the drummer. How do you do that? Well, I like to focus in to the bass drum out of all the drums and really play with it so that it sounds like one instrument. What I'm going to do now is use the drum machine and show you some simple patterns that you will come across as a beginning bassist. The first one is a ballad pattern. We're going to play just one note, which is the root, and it's going to be C on the A string, 3rd fret. Now let's listen to the bass drum. Just listen. Now play C to the bass drum. Nothing else. If you want to add another note, a real good note would be the 5th above the root. And we're going to add it when the snare drum hits. So you're listening to the bass drum and the snare drum. try it by yourself. That's a very common bass line to play in ballads, using the root and the fifth above. Now, you can also play the fifth in another place in relationship to the root. So what we just played was the root and the fifth above, which is one string up and 2 frets forward. You can also play the fifth below the root, directly below the root, on the string under it, which would be, if this is our root, the fifth would be on the next string down, right there. If you listen, this fifth and this fifth are the same note, just an octave apart. One style that uses the fifth below quite a bit in bass lines is country. So let's do the same thing as we did before, where we listen to the pattern initially, then we'll play just C as a root and lock in just with the bass drum, and then I'll throw the fifth in and see if you can match it. Okay? Let's try that. Just listen. Okay, let's put the root in on the bass drums. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make it tight. Now let's add the fifth. Below. Now. By yourself. Concentrate on the bass drum. Really lock in. Does it sound like one instrument? Good. Practicing like that will really sharpen up your time and give you a good understanding of how to locate the fifth below the root. The next pattern is a little more complex, so I want to spend some time actually showing it to you before we turn on the drums. What we're going to do is play the same root, C, but now we're going to use the fifth above the root and the fifth below in a style that's called Latin. Latin music is really fun for bassists to play. So let me show you like a simple version of this. When the Latin drum beat comes on, again we'll start with just root and lock in with the bass drum. When we add the other notes, it'll be like this. Fifth above, fifth below, and return to root. So it'd be root, root, fifth above, fifth below, root. It'll kind of sound like this. In the right hand, we have to focus and make sure that we're playing it properly. Let's take a look. First, you're going to play the root once, play the fifth above twice, play the fifth below, and the root again. Kind of at a slow tempo, it'll look like this. As you can see, that involves some string skipping, which can be a little difficult at first. So don't be afraid to stop the tape, break out your metronome or drum machine, and really slowly work on it. You're going to want to work on even, alternating with your fingers, and strong attack. Let's play it with the drums, see how it lays. Just listen to the bass drum. It's a little different than before. Okay, now let's just add the root. Now. Make it tight. Now the bass line. yourself. Really listen to that bass drum. Don't speed up or slow down. How's your right hand technique? Excellent. Great. So now, again, as always, if you had a hard time playing that at my tempo, stop tape and practice it slower. This one you might have to practice very slow because now we're really asking a lot of the right hand. But that's okay. That's the way we learn. After a while, you can take your own drum machine or metronome and push the tempo, because this could sound good faster and faster, and do it with all the different styles we covered. If you can do this and do it on a regular daily basis, you will be able to lock in with the drummer and be a vital part of the band. The blues, probably one of the most popular styles that's not too hard to play, but it's a lot of fun to play. I do recommend for you spend some time learning how to play the blues. A blues bass line is actually pretty simple to get under your fingers initially. We're going to build one off of the familiar major triad that we used in the first video. Starting on G, we play root, third, fifth, but we're going to add two more notes. The two other notes is the sixth, which from the fifth you'll go up to the next string and down 3 frets, and then play up 1 fret, and then you walk back down. Let me actually show you this really slowly. Root, third, fifth, sixth, 7, 6, 5, 3, root. That's a 2-bar pattern when we play quarter notes. So this would be 2 bars of blues. 3, 4. Okay, when you play the blues, again, concentrate on listening to the bass drum and having good, strong attack. Let's go back to the tracks and play a simple bass line in what's called straight time. Straight time is when the drums play 8th notes evenly. Like that. Now this won't affect you when you're actually just playing quarter notes, but we will actually play through the progression 3 times, and on the 3rd time we'll play 8th notes, which means we're going to play 2 times on each note of the pattern. It should sound like this: 3, 4. Real even. Just stay on G. With the right hand, just concentrate on even alternation. Okay, so let's go to the track. The first time we play it, we'll play quarter notes, roots only, just as we've always done. Then we'll play a quarter note walking bass line, like I just showed you. And the last time, we'll play the 8th note straight walking bass line. Let's check it out. Roots only. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, D, G. Quarter note walking line now. C, D, G. 8th notes. Great. Now as you played, listen for the drummer and make sure that your even eighth notes are locked in with whatever he's using to play eighth notes. Sometimes it's the hi-hat, sometimes it's the ride, or it'll be fluctuations off the snare and the hi-hat or the snare and the ride. But just really focus to be even and solid. That was straight time. In blues, you also can play shuffle time. What the shuffle is, when it comes to eighth notes, is they're no longer evenly spaced. This was straight. The shuffle is going to have a little lilt to it. It'd be now that's probably really common to you. You've already heard it even before you played the bass. You heard this. So it shouldn't be too hard for you to lock in. How does that affect your bass lines? Well, it doesn't affect it when you play quarter notes because you're only playing every other eighth note, which happens to be straight on. But when you go to play an eighth note bass line, like the last time through the progression, then you're going to change and play with more of a lilt. It would sound more like this. 3, 4. You see how my notes weren't evenly spaced? They were lilting. They had kind of a swing to it. Now we're going to do the same thing as we did with straight time, but now we're going to play to a swing line. First time, roots only. Let's just focus on our time and make sure we know the progression. Second, we'll play quarter note bass line. The bass line won't change from how we played when it was straight because we're just locking in on the quarter notes. The last time, we'll do eighth notes and really listen to get your consistent swing so it sounds good and solid with the drums. Let's try it with the machine. Roots only. 1, 2, 3, 4. Quarter note bass line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Eighth note. Great. Once again, if you have a hard time keeping up to my tempo, stop the tape and work it up from slower tempos until you can reach where I was playing. With the blues, you'll need to memorize a progression called the 12-bar blues. It uses the same chords as we played, but in a little different order. We'll learn it by playing along with the sequencer, and I'll call out the chords as we play. But I wanted to talk about a certain change you're going to have to make in your bass lines. At times, certain chords are only going to be played for one bar, which means you can't play the whole line I showed you. You're going to have to cut it in half, but it sounds great. Let's talk about starting with the D. Instead of playing, you don't have enough time, so you'll play the first 4 notes. And then the next chord will be C. You play, it's again C for 1 bar, so you'll just play the first 4 notes. And that's how you'll deal with the 1-bar transitions. There's a thing called the turnaround that we're going to deal with, where the last 2 bars of the progression is G to D. And I'm going to show you a little variation that could be kind of fun to play and lets the band know that you're back at the top of the progression. So when it comes to the 11th bar, the G, you'll play G, you'll play the 3rd, as we've always had. Now you'll just play up 1 fret, up 1 fret, until you get to D. And now we're on the D bar, the last bar of the progression, and just stay on D. And that's when you'll start at the top of the progression again. This is a really good tool to making sure that everyone knows in the whole band that you're going to start right back at the top. So let's go ahead and play. Start on G. 1, 2, 3, 4. G again. Go to C. Now. Back to G. D, C, G, turn around. Back to the top. Excellent. So that's the 12-bar blues. Memorize it and play it all around the neck, starting on different start notes. Start on A, but keep the same chords in the same relation. That way, when you're in the bar and someone calls out a 12-bar blues in A, you could play it. So from there, let's go on to a unique technique called slap and popping the bass. Slapping the bass, a lot of fun and really used quite a bit nowadays. It's a good technique and it's not that hard to learn. Mostly, you'll need to learn how to use your right hand differently and really start thinking percussively. The first step is to find the octaves, because most funk slap bass lines are built off of octaves. How do you do that? It's a simple formula. As always, let's start with G. Say that's our root, and we want to find the octave to it. Just go 2 strings up and 2 frets forward. And that's the octave. It's the same note, an octave higher. We use the octave quite a bit in slapping, and it's really effective. So take some time to look at your neck, find any note, like D, go 2 strings up, 2 frets forward, find the octave. Once you have that down, you'll be able to move on to the other sections easier. Now let's concentrate on the thumb, which is handling the slapping part of the slap pop technique. The thumb is going to be like a hammer hitting the strings, and you're going to focus your hit right on the little bone of this knuckle here, this joint. You want to hit that right on the part of the bass where the neck joins the body. And you want to make quick attacks where the thumb doesn't lay into the string like that. It actually hits and pulls out. Now let's just make sure you're getting a good thumb tone. You want the notes to ring freely, be very bright sounding, and have a good pure tone. You don't want this. What that is the thumb's laying into the string and not allowing it to vibrate. So you want to hit it quickly and with some energy so the string really kind of jumps to life. Let's try hitting each string twice open. 3, 4. Each day that you practice, just do that. Practice playing each open string and make sure the notes are full and long. That's some good basic thumb technique. Now let's concentrate on the popping aspect of playing. With popping, you're going to use your index finger. You're going to curl it just slightly under the strings and snap them up away from the fingerboard. That should look like this. There's no real rules except for when you actually combine that technique with the thumb. What you don't want to do once you integrate both the slap and the pop is you don't want to make them separate actions. Make them one action. When the thumb comes down, the finger should be in place to pop as the thumb comes up. So it's down, up, down, up. See how that was one action? It wasn't 2 separate actions. This will help increase your speed and your hand strength. So when you practice this, put on a metronome or drum machine and look for consistency in the way you make your hand motions. Make it a good, simple, energy type feeling, and you'll get a good percussion out of it. Let me now show you some variations that you can do instead of just playing thumb, pop, thumb, pop. Occasionally, you can play two thumbs, pop, thumb, pop. If you want ideas, listen to the way a drummer will play his bass drum and then a snare drum, and match it, thinking the bass drum is thumb, the snare drum is pop. So let's do a simple one thumb, one pop, two thumbs, one pop, and keep it in time. Here we go. A string, E string, now you have the basic technique, let's apply it to a progression. When you play the progression, you're going to have to play some open strings and some closed strings, but that's okay. We're going to start with E. The octave is on the 2nd fret of the D string. Then you'll play F sharp, and you'll play G. Then you'll play an open A. The octave's on the G string 2nd fret, B, C. Then we'll start back at the top again. Rhythmically, what I'd like you to do is start off by just playing even. Let the notes ring. You're going to play twice as long on the G and on the C than you do on any of the notes. You'll hear it. The second time through the progression, I'd like you to play one thumb, one pop, two thumbs, one pop, as we did before. So it'd sound like this. Concentrate on really locking the thumb in with the bass drum and the pops with the snare. Let's go ahead and try it with the sequencer. 1, 2, 3, 4. The variation. One, two, three, four. Once again, we're out of time. Practice over the information on this tape and play over the progressions again and again until you feel more comfortable. Once you have the information on this tape under your fingers, you'll be ready to move on to more advanced videos and books. Also, there's no substitute for a good teacher, so ask around at your local music store to find someone who can teach you. Thanks for spending this time with me, and good luck. How long was I supposed to play, by the way?